Welcome to this training, and in this training I'm going to teach you about how to focus from somebody who has got a recovering attention deficit brain. Now, I don't actually think that so many of us who have self-diagnosed with ADD or ADHD in the past actually have this problem. I don't actually believe that. Now, here's why. Just pause, suspend your disbelief for 1 second as I share as to you why. I sat with hundreds of people who would walk into my body transformation office when I was helping people lose weight and transform their body. And they would tell me how they had this biological problem which impeded their weight loss. I've got a poor thyroid. I've got some sort of genetic disorder. I've got some sort of symptom that doesn't allow me to lose weight. Now, albeit there were people who had genuine thyroid issues, there were people with genuine disorders and symptoms from PCOS, etc., that inhibited their weight loss somewhat. Most of the people who self-diagnosed with some problem had just never given themselves the opportunity to actually get great results. They maybe didn't understand how to lose weight. They'd been using a really crappy plan in the past. And that has meant that they had confused a crappy strategy with crappy self. They thought they were the problem. And I believe that so many people struggle with the same thing when it comes to creating really, really high levels of focus. Now, the reason I know this, in university, I was known as the guy who moved really fast, yet got absolutely nowhere. And this was really frustrating for me because I would try so hard to move forwards, to create things, to do the work that was required. And I was a very intelligent, smart dude, yet sometimes the stuff just wouldn't go in. Like, this was kind of the nuts and bolts of it. I could sit in a really long lecture, which was hot, which was monotone, which was not very engaging, and I could get 10% of what was talked about. Yeah, if I had a very engaging lecturer, if I had conversations with the people in the group, I would retain 90 to almost 100% of what was talked about because I'm really, really good at really focusing intensely on the things that matter to me. So this is what I believe why the same is true for you. And in this session, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about all the things that I think that you have to have in place before you start down this self-diagnostic process of believing that you've got some sort of a disorder that is stopping you from being an incredible professional leader or transformation person that's going to help people transform. Because you're able to transform your focus, you're able to transform the things that you want to in your life. So many of the leaders that I come across really struggle with focus. And this session, I'm going to go a mile deep into how to focus and become an absolute savage of productivity. So let's dive in. The first one I've got here is learn how you learn. If you think about this, if you ever felt like traditional methods just don't work for you, well, maybe it's not you, maybe it's the methods. Now, most people, especially men and boys in school, they are put in a classroom, they're sat and they're talked at. And I've sat in, actually, one of my first qualifications with PGCE. I remember sitting and talking to a group of 14 to 16-year-old young boys who had just gotten off the weekend on a Monday morning. They were not engaged. They were just not engaged. Yet if I took them out on the field, if I played games with them, or if I did an integrative learning approach, what would happen is they would retain way more because they would focus better. Now, this is the thing I think you need to focus on is how do you learn? This transformed for me when I learned that I would retain the most information when I was doing something that was really valuable to me. So obviously in line with your values. But the second thing is when I'm in a high emotional state. And the third thing was when I taught something. So what would happen for me is that I would go for a run with a podcast on or a book or some sort of book. And I would listen to this book. First of all, I would listen to it 3 times over. So I listened once for information, twice for insight, and 3 times for transformation. That's why my recall on for information is so good, because normally if I am espousing something from a book, I've listened to it 3 times. but I've listened to it in a high emotional state. I'm really engaged. I'm really switched on. I'm really dialed in, and I'm feeling really happy, especially if I'm running in the desert. I feel really good. I really enjoy it. The sun's on my face. I'm, listening to an audio book. It's a really, really good state for me to be in to retain information. Now, emotion is actually what wires in the knowledge that we listen to into our brain. So when we're in a high emotional state, we remember way more. So learning how you learn is the first way to become way better at focusing. Because say, for example, you're someone who has really struggled in the past to learn. You found yourself fractured attention in a classroom, loads of people talking and loads of noises and loads of stimuli like I struggled with. I would actually even go into the room and turn the speakers off. I would turn the speakers off at the front of the room because I could hear the high-pitched buzzing, and it distracted me so much. So even as I'm doing this video, there's a really loud noise outside, and my attention's going away from what I'm doing. So this is why it's so important to learn how you learn best, the conditions that you create for yourself. So the second one, and this changed my life. So what's the second one? The learning how to do deep work and what is deep work will change your life. Not all work is created equal. And what I mean by this is learning the time versus intensity work equation. Now, what does this mean? If I, for example, wanted to do 30 units of work, I could do 10 hours at the intensity of 3, which means I'm distracted, people maybe making noises around me, I'm not focused, I'm task switching, I'm going from task to task, I'm not really dialed in, I'm not doing much, I'm not actually writing much every single minute. That is the intensity of 3. That's going to take me 10 hours, but the same work at the intensity of 10, where I'm focused, my cell phone switched off, I'm really dialed in, I've got any distractions switched off, I'm not task switching, I'm in an environment where I'm really focused, that same work will take me just 3 hours. So this changed my life. Learning that equation was so helpful for me. Let me just go through it one more time, because honestly, this is so important when it comes to personal transformation and time and intensity. So if I've got 30 units of work, if I have the intensity of 3, it will take me 10 hours. If I have the intensity of 10, the same work will take me 3 hours. I'm way more effective. Now, here's the likelihood of me actually being able to focus. So what the problem is, if I give myself 10 hours to do that work, the likelihood of me finishing that work is really low. The probability to me sticking to that work is really, really low. Whereas if I'm intense and I get it done in 3 hours, the probability of me starting and completing that work is way, way higher. So it's actually more probable that I'm going to get it done, because so many people that I work with is that they will start things, but they won't finish them. Here's why, and this is one of the reasons why, is because the intensity is 3, they're getting so little done, and they're getting they're not getting very far into the task. Motivation, agency, reward drops. And this is so important for somebody who is trying to be effective. If you're someone who's got ADHD, ADD, you think you've got those symptoms, one of the biggest problems you're struggling with is your reward systems. And so you will constantly hop from thing to thing, task to task, stop and start, constantly looking for that kind of reward. Once you learn how to do deep work, which is where you switch off distractions, you get really dialed in, you know exactly what you're doing, you know exactly how much time you've got a deadline for when it needs to be finished, you bring a whole different intensity to that kind of work. The only way I can describe this is like going for an endless run versus a 10K run. If I was to say to you, go for an endless run, it's very demoralizing. You don't know how hard you can push. Your intensity is going to be low. Whereas if I said to you, go for a 10K run, you know how much energy you can give. You know roughly how long it's going to take you, and you can see a finish line. So when you're halfway through, you can start to push on the gas. So this is really, really important. When you start to look at your work like this, you don't look at time management and being more productive. You look and focus on being effective. You're getting more done with the time, but you're looking at the things that are really going to move the needle for you. How do you actually improve your deep work focus blocks? Now, this is how you do that. First and foremost, get very, very clear on the activity that you're doing. Sometimes if you rock up, or if I rock up to my calendar, I've got nothing in there. There's nothing being described. I don't know what I'm doing. It's not being used, or there's nothing in there at all. I don't know what to focus on. The second thing is I put the same kinds of tasks one after another. So I'm not taking a client call or doing a coaching session, then followed up by doing one of these videos. Today, for example, it's video day. I will batch record many of my videos and my trainings because I end up in this same state. I'm productive, I'm effective, and I get a lot done in one day. Whereas if I was to task switch, what happens would be I would carry some of the thoughts and the thinking and the cognition from one task into the next, and I wouldn't be as effective. Okay, that's the second one. The third thing for me is effectively caffeinated. So if I have too much caffeine, I'm ineffective. If I have none at all, I'm not effective. So for me, one coffee is ample to get me in a state where I'm focused, but I'm not overstimulated. And this can be a big thing for so many kids these days with all the energy drinks. I referenced the group of kids that I used to work with on a Monday morning. They would all walk into the session drinking Red Bull because they were so sleep deprived from the weekend of partying. So I always had an uphill battle. And this is where I started to learn about that kind of stuff as well. The third one is manage your energy. Nobody has a motivation issue. Everyone has an energy issue. Now, think about this in terms of you yourself, and when you've got energy to do things, you'll do them. Yeah, at the end of the day, especially if you've had a beer or a roast dinner or something that's really like tanked your energy, I call alcohol can't be bothered juice. As soon as I've had one of those things in the past, my energy would be low. The likelihood of me doing something that's going to be good for me or is going to be productive or effective gets way, way lower. So I have to effectively manage my energy, and I suggest you do the same. Here's how you can effectively manage your energy. Now, the first and foremost and the easiest one for this, especially if you've got some sort of struggle like ADD or ADHD, or if you've got like personality traits that make you like that, probably like me, you have to focus on your nutrition. It's the simplest, most effective way of managing your energy levels. Now, think of this like a fire. If I was to go camping with you and we put logs and coal on the fire, it'll burn steadily, it'll burn long, and it'll burn hot for most of the night. Yet if I was to use paper, straw, and some kindling, I would have to keep putting that on the fire. And what happens is, if you have a diet which is predominantly high refined sugars, but what they do, you'll be on this roller coaster of blood sugar, leading to dips and troughs in your energy levels. Now, what we want to do is we want to have something that sustains a nice, even energy level throughout the day. And this is where I always tell clients to focus on protein and fat. Protein being the first one, most important one. Because if you hit around about 100 grams or more of protein every single day, it really, really helps you focus. And now here's why. Because I'm not craving food. I'm not craving. It burns longer and slower. So when I have a steak, eggs, maybe a protein shake, or some sort of high quality protein source in the morning, which constitutes around about 20 to 40 grams of protein, I'm not hungry. I can sustain pretty much good attention for hours on end. But when I've had a high glycemic breakfast, something really sugary, something really sweet, sometimes even like a berry smoothie or like a really, really high fruit smoothie, I am absolutely ravenous by 1 p.m. I'm so hungry, I can't focus. And my attention starts to fracture into, I need to go and eat. And this is largely what we need to do when we're trying to nurture attention. We're looking to get ourselves in the optimal state where we've got these little thoughts that pull our attention away from the moment, that are being inhibited by the things that we're doing to combat them. So if I'm having something like a good quality meal, it's going to stop my attention from flaking off from the task at hand. The other one is how we can position our training. So where do we place our training? So I have a rule: 100% commitment is easier than 90% commitment. I train every day. The only thing that differs is the exercise that I do. So even a walk, a swim, a ride, a run, a weight training session all constitutes training. The only thing that will differ is the intensity based on where I am in my training program, sometimes even how I'm feeling, but I make that daily commitment. Here's why. Paradoxically, training gives us energy. This is where, and I've talked about this in the self-sabotage podcasts, is that when we tell ourselves we haven't got the energy to do something, it's paradoxical. Because when we do that thing, especially like train or the work that we need to be doing, when we do that work, it gives us energy. It gives us energy when we've completed a training session. We get that reward when we've completed a training session, whether that's a 10K run, a 5K walk, or even a morning swim, whatever it may be for you. When you've done that thing, you'll have more energy. So the way that I want you to see training is creating the fire for the day. And I believe that training in the morning, for me specifically, really does help me manage my attention and my focus. On the days I haven't trained, I'm measurably more distracted, my attention is fractured, and my energy fluctuates throughout the day. When I've trained, it's way more even keel. So if you yourself, your child, or someone you know is trying to really improve their steady energy, get them training in the morning. One of the reasons I believe that you're struggling with your attention and your focus is that you actually haven't put somewhere where you can actually get something done. Like, how many times have you got to the end of the day and felt like you've accomplished nothing? Like, absolutely nothing. You felt like you've got nowhere, you haven't done anything, yet you've done a million things and got nowhere. As I said before, I was known as the guy who moved the fastest, yet got nowhere. And I feel like so many leaders are exactly the same. They've done lots of things, but they haven't moved anywhere. And you feel exhausted because you've been focusing on doing, but you haven't moved the needle because you haven't worked on effectivity. Now, when I have coached people and they've moved from 10 tasks on the to-do list to 3 powerful tasks on the to-do list with one big thing, that is when things really start to change. And that one big thing should be something that is on the upper echelons of your personal capabilities. And what do I mean by this? Deep work, by its very nature, does stretch you. It really should be something that really forces you to bring your best to that hour, that your best to that hour, 2 hour, 3 hour stint, when you're doing your absolute best. Now, people who don't have deep work in the calendar are never really performing at their highest level. They're doing things, they're perpetuating like momentum from old tasks that they used to find hard, but now they find it easy. So they're never really being stretched. Whereas someone who focuses on doing their best work, stuff that really challenges them, stuff that's not usual or common, it's on the upper echelons of what their personal capability is, have way more impact. They feel good. Now, you're never going to be able to do that if you've got 10, 15, 20 tasks in a day. Whereas just by moving that from 10 to 20 to 3, you will notice a difference overnight. And think about this like a computer. When you've got 10, 20 different activities going on at any one point, it lowers the bandwidth. So for those activities, what you want to be able to do is apply high levels of bandwidth to one activity, have loads of potency, and you'll get that done. And honestly, this is a game-changing task. This is a game-changing task. You have so much more power, you get more done, you're more effective, and you will notice how much better you feel at the end of the day. You'll have way more things completed. And one of my great mentors said to me, you get paid for done. You get more things done, you get more things over the line, you get more things shipped, and you feel way, way better. And the likelihood of you repeating that is way higher. And this is one of the things I learned about ADHD and ADD, especially when it came to focus. If I did something and I didn't get some sort of payoff at the end, one of the things my brain would tell me next time I went into that activity was, don't go and do that again, Ben, because you're not going to get rewarded. It's going to be a waste of time. So what I want to be able to do is shrink the task, do something really good, get the reward, and it reminds me to go into that task again and repeat it again and again and again. So this was really, really helpful for me. The final one, and this is something that will really help you, especially if you've got fragile attention, like I have, is the fastest way to optimize your attention is to remove anything that takes it away. Take away distractions, remove them, turn them off. Do anything you can to remove anything that's going to take your attention away from the thing that you're doing in the moment. Now, even just a 10, 20% reduction in these distractions will give you so much more power and potency. Now, here's the truth. Our lives now are set up for more distraction and fragmentation than ever before. Just opening your phone, you will naturally default to scrolling. Now, even social media scrolling, it is set up for 3-second intervals that hook your attention and pull it into that reel, video, post, or whatever it may be. People have studied people's attention. And there's actually a job called an attention engineer. And they've worked out if a moment is 3 seconds long, and to hook your attention, I need 3 seconds, and then I can get you to consume something for 90 seconds, an hour, and maybe even more. But the most potent or the strongest way I can do it is to keep fracturing your attention, to keep you just looking for the next thing. So you're getting micro dopamine hits for each of these 3 seconds. Here's the problem. You could be on a task, a notification comes up, you check an email, then all of a sudden you're writing back to that email, then you realize that you've got to call someone. Before you know it, you're 10 steps away from the important task that you should be doing. And this is what I've heard so many people struggle with, is that their attention is being cannibalized by their notifications, interruptions, and distractions. So here's how you set up to make sure you have the perfect opportunity to do your best work. First and foremost, tell the people around you that you're focusing. I remember back in my gym, on a Thursday, I'd have a day like this where I'd record all my videos, do all my deep work. I had to be very communicative for the times that I didn't want to be interrupted. I knew how fragile my attention was. So I would tell people, whatever happens, don't come in on Thursday. If you need something, Monday. So I would try and resolve all my team's issues and struggles and challenges on a Monday so I didn't get interrupted on a Thursday. But I'd also communicate not to be interrupted on the Thursday. So if you work from home, you work from a home office, or you work in an office where people are constantly coming in and out and distracting you, you want to think about how you can stop that by communicating powerfully when someone shouldn't come in, even if that means a sign on the door. The second thing is turn off all of your notifications, buzzes, vibrations, bings, bongs, all that sort of stuff. My cell phone has 0 notifications. My WhatsApp doesn't ping, my iMessage, my emails, nothing actually alerts me. I have to go and actively check for things. And when I did that, my attention, my focus improved astronomically because my phone is normally near me. And this is something, if you really struggle with this, move your phone to the other room when you're doing deep work. And the final thing is, I actually just talk about the environment I'm in right now. So if you're listening to this, you won't be able to see this, but I've got a dark room. I have the blinds closed, and I normally have a sound treated environment as well. This helps me so much. And when I'm in a sound treated room, which is dark, where I'm just focusing on doing deep work, I can reach a level 7, 8, 9, and 10 for my focus. Whereas if I'm in a coffee shop, which is busy, it's noisy, there's lots going on, there's people coming in and out, there's people smiling at me, I'm not as focused. I'm looking for any opportunity not to be doing the work in front of me, and I'll find it. So be mindful of your environment. It's so, so important. Turn off those distractions. Now, let me just come back to that statement I made at the start. So many people right now are diagnosing themselves with ADD, ADHD, and some of them are absolutely correct. I absolutely endorse you going and seeking medical advice if you believe that your attention and focus is so prohibited by your natural default state that you need some sort of assistance. I do believe that. You should always go and get interested. But please, please, please make sure you do these things and give yourself a fighting chance, whether you've got some sort of impediment to your learning, whether it's some sort of biological struggle that you have that makes your attention hard to hold, or you genuinely have ADHD, ADD, or any of the neurodivergent conditions that stop people from having an ability to hold attention on things. Give yourself a fighting chance, because like the body transformation world, there were people that would come in every single day and they did have conditions which stop them losing weight, and you can change for that and you can calibrate for that, and you absolutely can help those folks. But 90% of the people who came in and told me those stories, I didn't buy it. I just don't believe that we're doing the basics. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, subscribe, give me a review. And if there's something that you agree with, or even if you disagree with, head on over to the comments. I'd love to hear from you.